We have a special treat for you today. This is a presentation by the Korea Environmental Justice Special Interest Group, and I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Jepri Ali Saiful. Dr. Jepri Ali Saiful is an assistant professor in the Department of English Education, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education at the Muhammadiyah University of Surabaya, Indonesia. His research interests include Eco-ELT, which is a study in the teaching of environmental issues in ELT, language teacher cognition and professional development, eco-criticism, which is imperial and Islamic criticism. He serves as an active professional member of TESOL International Association, Asia TEFL, and Teflon. He also serves as an editorial board and reviewer of national and international journals in ELT and education. He's also a national and international teacher. He also has national and international teaching experiences as an English teacher in K-12 education in Taiwan and Indonesia. Welcome, Dr. Jepri Ali Saiful.
Okay, thank you very much, Rhea. So very nice introductions. Hi, everyone. So this is the time for us to get into further to the topic of environmental movement, especially in ELT. And I coined this term like Eco-ELT. So the topic for today is about how Eco-ELT as a home for environmental research and also practice within ELT field, within our field. And I would like to briefly introduce this kind of idea and then principles as well as the framework of Eco-ELT. This is me. As I mentioned earlier, that currently I'm assistant professor in English Education Department, Muhammadiyah University of Surabaya, and I'm also inventor of Eco-ELT concept or founder of Eco-ELT professional community. So if you have kind of idea of a project or two collaborations in terms of teaching as well as research, then please hit me up through my email. For example, this is my email, jeprialiseful@umsurabaya.ac.id. And my research expertise falls within Eco-ELT, language teacher cognition and professional development, and eco-criticism. And this is my research focus, in relation to sustainable development goals. There are 4: quality education, climate actions, life below water, and also life on land. So my research revolves around this kind of issues within SDGs goals. And then as for your information about my personal and professional credentials in relations to environmentalisms, so I engaged this kind of environmentalism since I was in high school. Actually, I was eco ranger in high school, and I engaged projects such as trash cleaning on nature. And in college life, like in 2013, I was selected to be one of 100 Asian youth eco-leaders. And we did 5 weeks volunteerism and community engagement on biodiversity and environment. And in 2014, I was also again selected to be Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative to join workshop and projects related to environment and education and social issues. And 2015, I won a youth and community development grant, from the US State Department, and we did a project called Asian Youth Energy Institute Camp, where we selected 29 youths across Asian to get workshop and training on Asian renewable energy issues. And 2014, 20, and 23, I'm a founder of Eco-ELT concept. And 2023 also, my doctoral dissertations also revolves around Eco-ELT, Islamic environmentalism, and eco-criticism. So, this is my professional and personal engagement in environmentalism to demonstrate how I've been involved to this game. And currently, I'm also a part of global community on empirical eco-criticism. So eco-criticism is the study of literature or environmental texts and its relations to the environmental movement and how we bring positive relationship, shape positive relationship and positive responses of the human through the through the readings of text, through the empirical kind of research about the impact of environmental text on building humans' relations to nature. And this is a global empirical community, so you can just hit it in the kind of search in the Google, empirical eco-criticism. This is a very good movement. Well, we use environmental narratives on the impact of environment and human. And then, yeah, as mentioned earlier, I'm part of this membership. I don't want to like kind of repeat it again. So kind of headed to the inviting you, all of you guys, if you want to be a part of our community, which is Eco-ELT, you can just type it in the Facebook Eco-ELT community group, and then you can find it our group. And it is also a sister a group for the TESOL, environmental research or environmental community too. So a lot of group, I'm happy that Eco-ELT movement are growing. So let's begin then. So I would like to demonstrate or show you that this is what is happening in our Earth, which is tremendous anthropogenic perturbations are happening, and it leads to planetary quagmires. So meaning that the place we are living right now, the Earth and the cosmos or the ecosystem is slowly dying, and they are crying. So this impacts or this cry is impacted by the current environmental crisis that is also currently continuing raising, such as climate change. So this is like the current report from the UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, which reports that our current temperature raised 1.1 Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And this led to more frequent and hazardous weather events. And this also can have strong and negative destructions towards us as humans and our friends, our fellow friends, creatures, other creatures such as non-human beings, animals, and plants, and whole ecosystem. And then in terms of our friends, which is non-human plants or animals, especially animals, so wildlife populations such as mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, fish is also devastating, like drop average since 1970. So this is like going on right now. So we need to understand these situations. That is that our Earth right now is crying because of nature deteriorations that are happening a lot in our Earth. So climate change, and then our friends of mammals, birds, and amphibians also are crying because of this kind of environmental problems are happening. And then us as humans, what is happening in our in relation to us, in relation to our life? Well, you can see that during COVID situations, this is like the most dangerous, and this is like kind of the pandemic also creates stories behind it. That the pandemics, like the transformative or the spread of virus of this COVID-19 particularly virus is also caused by what? By the air pollutions, by the dust. So are the study that demonstrate that dust or air pollutants and are the particles where they become a transportations for the virus to spread. So sometimes we as humans, we already keep distance, for example, 1 to 2 meters, or even like long meters, like 3 meters or more, 5, 6 meters and so on, but we still get affected by the COVID. Why? Because the COVID virus, when we release from our breath, when we talk and we sing and so on, they like release it from our mouth, and then there is a dust, there is pollutions, there is particles where the virus are attached in it, and then they are rolling, and then we breathe that kind of virus. So like dust and then also particles and so on are become the avenue, are become the transportations for the virus to spread. And you can see here, like this is like the air pollutions, like particles, like we call it PM 2.5, which is particulate matter. And this is a very small, you may imagine that in our hair, like 10 times smaller than the diameter of our hair. And this become the transportations of the virus to spread, not only COVID virus, but airborne viruses such as flu and influenza and others like mpox and so on. So this kind of and this is a part of the aerosols, we call it aerosol, is also a part of air pollution, which we produce every day, like we burn trashes and from these smokes and from our transportations. So air pollutions in this case or environmental problems also affect us as human beings, our health, even our existence, like our life. Could you imagine how many people were passed away or were dead because of COVID-19 situation, because of pandemic virus of COVID-19? So this demonstrates that environmental problems not only affecting the whole ecosystem, which include the plants, animals, but also us as humans. Our existence is also become dangerous situations because of the environmental problems. So in relation to our field, how about in our field? Are there any unsustainable practices of ELT? Well, if we do it like offline, sometimes we just forget like consumptions, like food consumptions. When we do ELT conferences, we do not manage the food, the amount of water, and then we sometimes see our students and our participants still do littering activity. So this is kind of a small example of a few example of environmental unsustainable activity or practices that is happening in our field. So we do know that there is happening environmental problems around the world, climate change, and then devastating mammals, numbers of mammals, and then also viruses to spread because of air pollution. In our field also, there are a lot of unsustainable practices that happening. So what we can do then? The question is, do we really need to wait our unsustainable practices coming to our field? Or we take actions now to tackle current and future possible unsustainable practices in our field of ELT? Well, this is like what is happening, that ELT, our field, has the capacity and also has the responsibility to address sustainability crisis, including environmental problems. So this book, this is a very good book, so you can just download it and buy it, like TESOL and Sustainability. This book demonstrates and echoes that our field of study has the capacity, has the potential and responsibility as other fields of study to develop and to address environmental issues, actually. So environmental issues, environmental problems is not the responsibility of science department. It's not the responsibility of STEM departments on other fields. We, all of us in across disciplines, across sectors, having the same responsibility to address environmental problem because we live in the same earth. We live in one planet. We live in, we have one water, we have one sky, we have one unity of environments, which we need to address it coordinately, and then we need to take actions like harmoniously, hand in hand with a lot of fields, not only science department, but also TESOL, which is our field in this case. And Boyden also have in the past, like 2010, already demonstrated and echoed that ELT has potentials for addressing environmental issues. In the text, we use a lot of text, we see a lot of text, a lot of news about, in English, yeah, about environment and about gender, about educations, about maybe climate change and so on. And those can be those materials can be an avenue for our teaching materials where the students can learn and then discuss about it. So actually, our field of English language teaching has huge opportunities to incorporate sustainable development goals topics in our classes. And this has been echoed in the past by Boyd in 2010. And as I mentioned earlier, not only our field have the responsibility and it has the capacities and potentials on it to address environmental issues, especially related to sustainable development goals. And you know what? This is also the current study from our ELT journal. So this is ELT journal, the top journal from Oxford University, where this study, Mercer et al., demonstrate that ELT has the potential to address global issues, including environmental crisis. So this study is like Mercer et al. Studied teachers' perspective, teacher challenges when they teach environmental topics in English classes. And it found out that the teachers still need support in terms of the materials, teachers need support in terms of the trainings, they do not know how to teach, and so on and so forth. So there is still lack of kind of movement, lack of support that received by the teachers when it comes to like they want to implement this kind of niche activities or environmental teaching in ELT. And these journals or this study also demonstrate to us that, oh, ELT in our field of study also has the potential, but the potential also needs to be mushroomed. I mean, like needs to be supported in terms of the trainings for the teachers when it comes to like they want to teach in the classroom, and we need to provide more kind of teaching materials related to environmental issues so that the teachers have the choices, myriad choices in terms of what kind of text, what kind of videos, activities that the teachers can integrate in their teaching activities in English lessons. So this is what is happening. But you know what? In a lot of activities, like I compile a lot of studies related to environmental issues, but compared to like the whole universe, the whole world, the studies are just, as for now, I found only 100 or more, like 115 studies related to environmental teaching and study in ELT. And these studies are unstructured, actually. They just do study like this, and then they did one kind of method. The other is also one approach. So there is no inclusive movement. There is no such term that can encompass, that can cover a lot of approaches, methods, and other kind of strategies when it comes to like teaching and research environmental issues. So in order for in order for making this kind of movement to be one line, to be one kind of coordinated actions or coordinated movements, we need a term, we need inclusive concept, we need a framework so that a lot of environmental issues and environmental movement in our field can hand in hand and can have a home, can have a place where they want to grow and where they want to like double their movements or endeavors in environmental teaching. So that's why I propose a term Eco-ELT. So Eco-ELT in this case, I hope that will be a home for environmental movements in ELT to live and grow, because we up until now do not have kind of a term, a concept, and a framework where we can be a guidelines, can be a guidance for us to move forward in our field of ELT to address environmental teaching, to address environmental issues through teaching and research within our field of ELT. So that's why I coined this term Eco-ELT like back then in 2014. So I will explain it later. Well, anyway, this is Eco-ELT is a term and a concept and framework for the movements of environmental teaching and research in our field of ELT, so that we can have coordinated actions, coordinated concept about environmental teaching and research in ELT. So this is like the force of Eco-ELT movements. If you want to be a part of the movement, so please join the Eco-ELT kind of Facebook page or the other related Facebook group page. And then I did a lot of kinds of tour about Eco-ELT, so presenting, including this in TESOL activities. And the upcoming one I will present in the Pakistan and in the UK. So what is Eco-ELT? In my publications, like Eco-ELT is simply defined as the study and teaching of environmental issues in ELT. So I currently published in 2023 the whole concept, the inclusive concept of Eco-ELT. If you are, guys, if you are doing a research about teaching environmental issues in ELT, about environmental movement ELT, then you are a part of Eco-ELT movement. However, if you do not want doing a research, but you just do kind of teaching, you are a practicing teachers, you are practitioners, and you just teachers, you are not academicians or researchers, but you do teaching environmental issues in ELT, such as you teach climate change in your classes, but you are not researchers, then you still a part of Eco-ELT movement. Meaning that Eco-ELT, there are two branches. The first one is the study, is the research. The second one is the environmental teaching. So it's like teaching, and then the second one is study. If you do teaching environmental issues, you are a part of Eco-ELT movement. You do research about environmental issues, you also a part of Eco-ELT movement. So there are two, teaching and research. So Eco-ELT focuses on environmental sustainability. If you can see that in the Sustainable Development Goals, there are three pillars, social, economic, and environment. Although these pillars are interconnected to one another, but this focusing on Eco-ELT is just only the environment. If it is related to the Sustainable Development Goals, it deals with clean water and sanitations, affordable and clean energy, responsible consumption and productions, climate actions, life below water, and life on land. So these are the topics that we can addressed within our scope of environmental movement through Eco-ELT. And you mentioned, as Saman mentioned earlier, that I coined this term Eco-ELT in 2014, and it was refers to using environmental literary works in ELT to instill children's love of environment and virtues of local wisdom. So in the past, during my college, my undergrads, when I was in undergrad education, when I was in college, I concerned with the environmental problems happening in my environment. So I came up to the idea of teaching environmental issues and then instilling love of environment to the children. So I came up to the idea of starting loving the environment to the children. And that's why I coined this term Eco-ELT, and I use environmental literary works because there are a lot of poetries, there are a lot of songs about environment, and it deals with environmental issues, and it started from the children. So this is like the first definitions or conceptualizations of Eco-ELT, which refers to using environmental literary works in ELT to instill children loves of environment and virtues of local wisdom. But I found out that this conceptualization need to be more inclusive. So in 2020, I developed these conceptualizations of Eco-ELT to include the eco-criticism approach, which means that it's not only literary works, but also literary media related to environment, literary texts, any kinds of documents, any kind of media which deals with environmental, which deal with environmental issues. And this apart, and you, if you do this, or if you use this kind of environmental text or environmental media, such as movies, songs, and so on and so forth in your teaching, then you are a part of Eco-ELT. So this conceptualization is becoming more inclusive, but still using eco-criticism approach, which is the teaching of environmental topics using any printed and digital literary works. And the eco term in this case represents eco-criticism approach. I found out that these definitions in 2020 that I proposed to define what is Eco-ELT, then still it is not inclusive. I found out that a lot of research, a lot of movements in Eco-ELT not only using environmental literary works, but they also can use project-based learning. They can use also digital storytellings. Even they can also use like communicative language teaching, think pair strategy, and so on and so forth. So meaning that there are diverse environmental movements in our field of ELT. They use various approaches, various methods, various strategies of teaching environmental issues. So I refined these conceptualizations to be more inclusive. As long as you study and teach about environmental issues, whether you use any approaches any methods, strategies, you still a part of Eco-ELT movement. So meaning that in 2023, I refined the conceptualization of Eco-ELT to be more inclusive so that it can encompass a lot of movements and a lot of types of movement and approaches of movements in our field of Eco-ELT. In our field of ELT. So that's why in 2023, I published this kind of conceptual framework of Eco-ELT, and I elaborate this in terms of the philosophical standpoint, such as the ontology, epistemology, and axiology of these definitions of Eco-ELT. So why we should call it Eco-ELT? This is very interesting part. Why not green ELT? Why not blue ELT? Why not pink ELT? Why not black ELT? Why not other colors? Why should we use it Eco-ELT? Why not other colors? Where this is kind of a very interesting questions when I came up to this idea of presenting or argumentating this kind of colors, I found out that it deals with the environmental history. So meaning that we are, when I took courses of environmental history when I was in my doctoral degree level, when I took the courses of environmental movement and critical environmental movement, I found out that we live on land, and then the environmental movements only using or mostly using or dealing with environmental problems that is happening on land, so that we always perceive that something good in nature, something fresh in nature that they are not polluted is always green, because we live on land. We see nature is green, is the best representations of good nature, fresh nature with no environmental problems, because we live on land. So that's why it impacts our paradigm that we see nature, which is good, is always green. So that's why there is green economy, green ELT, and a green movement, and so on. But in 2020, 2021, there is a new movement that we have been living in island that we develop our paradigm to be more land-based thinking, so that we forget the roles of water, the environmental movements that is happening on our ocean, in our water. In fact, that in our Earth, 75% of our Earth consists of water or oceans. The land is just only view, like 25%. Like the whole our Earth consists of water. So that means we need to shift our paradigm that environmental problems also happening on our oceans. So that's why there is a new movement called green or blue eco-criticism, or blue environmental movements, or blue environmental humanities. So this green ELT or blue ELT are come up because of we think that the environmental problems happenings only on land and only on the oceans. But I challenge this kind of framework, or this kind of paradigm or conceptualization. Environmental problems happens not only in our land, not only on the oceans, but also on the air. Then is there a color on our air? Like, should we name it like white ELT? Our air is no color. It's just like clear. So I challenge this kind of idea that we should focus on using Eco-ELT, eco representing the ecology, the ecosystem. So when we use Eco-ELT, it represents that, it gives signals that our field of ELT focusing on addressing environmental problems not only on land, but also on the air, but also on the oceans, the whole cosmos. So we should use Eco-ELT in this case to be the most appropriate term to encompass environmental problems that is addressed by the field of ELT, not only on land, not only on the oceans, not only on the air, but the whole cosmos. If we just use green ELT, blue ELT, and other colors, it leads to misunderstanding to the public that our field of ELT just focusing on addressing problems of environment only on land, only on the ocean, or only on the air. In fact, environmental problems are happening the whole ecosystem. So Eco-ELT in this case is the most appropriate term to be used to give signals and to demonstrate that our field of ELT care towards environmental problems happening the whole cosmos. And this is like from Jewett. Dobrin is the one of the professor that address the green naming of our environmental movement. And what are the Eco-ELT bases? So the basis of Eco-ELT, there are two, because this is interdisciplinary field. So the first one is the language. The second one is the ecology or education. The language part is constructed within the philosophy of the theory of social constructivism, which in second language and learning and acquisition, meaning that social constructivism emphasizes the roles of social interactions and cooperative learning in constructing learners' knowledge on understanding of reality. This differs from cognitive constructivism, which concerns learners' capability to build reality, meaning that language learners, English language learners, when they want to improve their English proficiency, they do not rely on their internal capacity, their brain, their cognitive capacity, but they also need to rely on their outside factors, such as the books they read, and then the partners they want to speak, such as the native speakers or the others, the friends, and then the teachers. So outside factors also affect the acquisitions and the proficiency of English language learners, not only their cognitive capacity or competence. In this case, social constructivism upholds the role of outside factors, other factors, in constructing the reality, constructing the knowledge of the learners and proficiency of learners in their language acquisitions and learning. So that's why in this case, Eco-ELT provide humongous, tremendous, and ubiquitous kind of teaching materials, texts, environmental texts such as poetries, songs, and so on about environment that can be an input for the students to acquire language. A lot of environmental topics, a lot of environmental texts, videos, movies are written or are demonstrated in English language, and those can be an avenue. Those can be a comprehensible input for the students to acquire the language, new language, to get new language, such as vocabularies about environment. And then when they discuss this topic with their friends, with their peers, with their teachers, they also acquire or get more on their proficiency in English. So this is like kind of the basis for social constructivisms, the role of other factors that contribute to the language proficiency and acquisitions of learning. And this can be provided by Eco-ELT teaching materials, which are ubiquitous, which are various, and this can boost the proficiency of language learners. And then in parts of the ecology, remember that Eco-ELT is the language part and also the ecology, especially the education part. There are three philosophical points in this case, movements of environmental. The first one is environmental humanities. It's an interdisciplinary field of study that researches environmental problems and meanings of good life for all living beings through the lens of art and humanities. So this is a new field of study. We call it environmental humanities, where cover a lot of kind of fields of studies to be one study. So that for example, it invites religious movements of environment, and then animal rights, and then plants rights, literature, and others to hand in hand to be together to address one environmental problems. And this can be a part of our Eco-ELT movements, because when we teach environment, we can also integrate literature. We can also integrate the idea of environmental animal rights or plant rights and others like religious rights, religious movements, and so on. So this is also become the ground for Eco-ELT to live and grow. The second part is definitely education for sustainable development, because Eco-ELT shares a similar orientations with ESD. We call it education for sustainable development, because Eco-ELT focuses on developing students and teachers' awareness and connections with nature, as well as promoting values and behaviors that contribute to environmental sustainability. And the last part, definitely eco-pedagogy. So eco-pedagogy encourages a holistic view of the world, considering the Earth and all entities as interconnected. Its goal is to provide students with deeper understanding of environmental violence, meaning that when the teachers of language, English language teachers, when they teach about environmental issues in ELT, it provides the students opportunities to criticize, to advocate about environment, to see and criticize the environmental violence that is happening surround them through the discussions, through the eco-critical discussions, through kind of projects about environmental issues in ELT. So eco-pedagogy can be one of the ground for eco-ELT movement. So these are the philosophical grounded and movements of eco-ELT, and this is at the basis for eco-ELT to live and grow. And you know what? This is the benefits of Eco-ELT if you want to implement it. The first one is definitely for students. They will increase their linguistic and language competency. They will increase their knowledge and awareness about environment. Worldview will be shifted. And then they become, when they do cooperations about teaching about environmental issues, the teachers can also, the students can also develop their cooperation and social awareness about environment. And then their empathy towards environment, their emotions, they feel also being happy, oneness, unity with environment. For English teachers themselves, when they want to improve, when they want to, or they apply environmental teaching in ELT, the teachers also can be a part of the agent of change of the environment. The teachers' functions is to transform the functions of English for environmental activisms. So the teachers become also, can be more knowledgeable about the environment, can be a part of the environmental movement. So when the teachers want to implement Eco-ELT in English classrooms, the teachers can use the principles or the approach of post-method pedagogy, meaning that there is no panacea for all diseases, meaning there is no one best method fits with all contexts of environment. So when the teachers need to implement environmental issues or teach environmental issues, they can uphold the principles of eclecticism, meaning that they can adjust or they can use any approaches, methods which are relevant with their context or their classroom, with the proficiency of the students, with the available of environmental teaching materials, with the context of the schools, with the environmental problems happening on their villages or in their schools. So there is autonomy, there is a kind of independence for the teachers, independency for the teachers to use any kinds of methods, teaching materials, and so on and so forth, based on their particular situations. And this is the ground. This is the principle of practice from Eco-ELT. So there is no restrictions to use any kind of teaching methods. It is up to the teachers based on their context. It is autonomous teaching activities. And how we do implement Eco-ELT? Well, there are a lot of activities actually. There are 5 domains. The first one is material that you can do teaching about sustainable consumptions, and experiential when you can bring students to go out to the nature, to have direct contact with the nature, because direct contact to the nature can bring strong connection to the nature, strong inclusions with the nature. Or you can just having conversations and then do interventions to increase the knowledge, awareness, and attitudes of the nature. Or you just to kind of activities that boost the feelings of oneness and empathy to the nature, or more towards philosophical, where you try to shift the worldview of the students so that the students do not think that the students are the master of the nature and then the nature are the servant. So they need to change, we need to change the view of the students to be more egalitarian view, so that they think that they are a part of the nature and they are the same with the nature. And bringing this deep connection to the nature is important, because deep connection to the nature is one of the current solutions for sustainable development activities. So that's why being a part of the nature is important. When you are, when you feel one unity to nature, there is less possibility for you to harm the nature, because you think that you are a part of the nature. And this can boost the tendency of the people to do pro-environmental activities. And I share some of the instances of Eco-ELT instructions. For example, this one, you can do descriptive writing about non-human plants and animals. You can do genre-based writing, yeah, in terms of descriptive writings, where the students go out to the nature, observe the nature, and took a picture about animals or plants, and then they go back to the classroom, and then they position themselves as an animal and plant they took, yeah, and they observe, and then they write descriptive about what they see, what they feel, as if that they are the animals and plants. So this can boost the empathy towards the nature and then boost the descriptive writing skills in English. So this is like the examples of their product. And then micro-story eco-compositions, where the students are assigned to go out to the nature and then do kind of story lined or activities, and then they need to have a report and send it to the teachers. And then a lot of activities can be like using poetry, song, and then we have discussions about all agency contributing to the realities of environmental problems such as air pollutions. We can also do ecomusicology. This is a new movement with which we integrate music and then about the songs, and then we discuss about musicians, music artifacts, and music in actions. So this is a very interesting part to integrate, to teach environmental topics through music. And then the last one would be nature to journaling. So the students can pick a lot of natures, and then they have a journal, and they share about the nature, and then what their view about the nature, and then they do like journaling activities. And then for young learners, they can do like video, songs, and then they can do storybooks activities, yeah, through picture books. And it definitely improve the environmental awareness of the students. So meaning there are a lot of activities. We can use eco-drama, environmental news, digital storytelling, and so on and so forth. So in terms of the research, we can do a lot of research in this case. We can do a lot of research related to the instructional materials, related to Eco-ELT, how to develop materials, how to develop curriculum, policy, assessment. We can do research in formal, informal education, non-formal, in all contexts of whether the English is a second language or foreign language or TESOL and other fields. So a lot of room to research in this case if you are academicians or professors in higher educations. But if you are just a teacher, then you can do a lot of activities I mentioned earlier. So these are the examples of the study. In conclusion, we as English teachers or educators carry the responsibility to address environmental issues. We are agents of change on environmental sustainability. So what does it mean? We have the responsibility first to develop students' English proficiency. Second, to build students and nature a positive relationship. So how we can achieve this responsibility to bring environmental advocacy in language classroom? We can use through Eco-ELT teaching strategies such as material, experiential, when we can bring students to go out to the nature, we shift their cognitive emotions or even their worldview through philosophical discussions. So again, ELT has the responsibility and potential to address environmental crisis, saving our planetary ecosystem. Let's prove to the world that our ELT field has the commitment and will continuously participate in local, national, and global environmental sustainability. It is not too late for TESOL to join in and contribute to saving our world. I repeat, it is not too late for TESOL, our lovely field, to join in and contribute to saving our world. So let's take action now. Let's save our Earth through Eco-ELT. I thank you. Thank you, Rhea. That's all just my presentations.
Thank you, Jepri. And if you would kindly either unmute your mic and offer some applause, or you can give him some virtual reactions. That concludes the lecture portion of this event. Thank you so much. Thank you. So to let you guys know our plan, from here, I'm going to stop recording and we are going to have a candid discussion section of this lecture. Once again, thank you so much, Jeffrey.